Okay, let's talk about how to grid your portrait. You should have received one of these at home of whoever you chose as your hero, and it should be on an 8.5 by 11-inch piece of paper. So the first thing that you're going to do is get a pencil and a ruler and your portrait, and you're going to start on one side, line up the 0 with the edge of the paper, not the edge of the ruler. The 0 goes on the edge of the paper. Okay? Then you are going to mark every inch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I had the don't do that. Make sure you're using the inch side of the ruler. Okay, so when you get to 8, you're going to have a mark here, and there's going to be a 1/2 inch left over on this side. That's okay. Then, instead of rotating your paper like this and starting to mark, don't do that, because then you're going to have the 1/2 inch on the opposite corner and your lines won't match up. So you've marked your 1 inch on the top, then you're going to slide your image up and your ruler down, and again mark every inch across the bottom of the page. Okay? Then again, then you should have a 1/2 inch on the same side of your paper, the same edge. So basically a 1/2 inch is going to get cut off of this side. Okay? Then, same here, every inch, there's 11 inches on this side of the paper, so you should have a perfect 11-inch grid, 1 inch marks. Slide down the other side, mark every inch, and then of course you connect your lines. So you will have something that looks like this. Here's that extra 1/2 inch on this side, or this, depending on who you chose, obviously. Then you can see that this is a lot lighter, so the pencil lines show up better than this. You can experiment if you have a very dark image. You can use a white colored pencil. Although you can, when in person, you can see these lines better. Let me turn the light on. There you go. Now you can really see those lines. See? Okay, so then the next step is to think back to when we did contour line drawing. And remember, the contour lines are like the important lines that kind of outline whatever it is, sort of the outlines of the details. So then you're going to take your pencil and you're going to just start to trace the lines that you think are important. Okay? Not every single line, but like definitely the outline of the face. On her, since she's older, you've got, like more wrinkles and lines here, the outside of her ear, the inside shapes of her ear, collar, just nose, eyes, basic things. The outline of her hair. So there. Do you see those pencil lines I drew to outline the contours, the important lines that I want to draw when I transfer my image to my bigger grid. All right, I'm going to pause it for a minute. All right, next step is you have a piece of 18 by 12 inch paper. I sent it home to you. It's heavier, it's thicker. This is the paper I think you should use. You don't have to, but I think this is the best. Now it's probably going to be curly because it was rolled up and sent home to you. So what you can do is very, very carefully, if you get a clothing iron and turn it on low heat, listen to me carefully and closely, low heat, and then you can iron your paper. Iron the back side of it. The front side of this paper has a little bit of a texture. The back side is smoother. Okay? You can iron it with a very warm iron, not hot. Otherwise, you'll burn your paper and potentially your house down. Okay. Now, this is 18 inches. We are enlarging our portrait. So we are going to mark, instead of every inch, we are going to mark every 1.5 inches. Okay, again, lining up the 0 on the edge of the paper. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5. And that should get us to 12 at the end here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 8 squares, just like on the smaller paper, only they're bigger. Okay, same thing on the bottom. Measuring lining up the 0 on the edge of the paper, every 1.5 inch. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5, 12. Same thing on the long end. Now you only have a 12-inch ruler, so this could be a little tricky. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5, 12. Then you got to slide your ruler down. Line up the 0 on the last mark that you made, not the edge of the ruler, the 0. And then start again. 1.5, 3, 4.5. And that should take you to 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oops. All right, you had 11 squares on your other paper. You're going to have 12 here, which basically means you're going to cut off the bottom 1.5 inches of this paper. Okay, then again, marking every 1.5 inch across here. All right, now I'm connecting my lines. I drew a dark line here because that's going to be the edge of the paper, because we have 1 extra square here that we're going to end up cutting off. Okay, but then when you connect your lines, this is very, very key important. As light as you can possibly draw, because you will be erasing these lines. All right, you guys, so there's my horizontal lines. They're very light, and this is a 12-inch ruler and you have 18-inch paper. So if you try to connect your vertical lines, you can't. So here's how we're going to solve that problem. We're going to find the middle line of our paper, and what we're going to do, again, very lightly, is mark every 1.5 inches right here on the middle of the paper. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5, and then the edge of the paper makes 12. Then you can connect this line, the middle line, to the bottom, very light, and the middle line to the top, very light. Okay, now you have a continuous line all along that 18-inch. Okay. All right, so now I have my grid. What I'm going to do now is I'm cutting off one section of the bottom, because we have 12 squares instead of 11, so that's going to be confusing. So off comes the last row of squares. Okay, now I should, if I did my measuring correctly, I should have a very straight line to go ahead and cut that off. Now, if you don't want to cut it, you can just leave it and maybe use that as like practice space for shading or something, and then cut it off at the end. But it's kind of confusing. All right, last but not least, across the short end of your paper, you're going to number 1 through 8. You should have 8 squares. And then going down the long end of your paper edge, letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, ending with K. Okay?